Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real. I'm your host, Maini. Here with me is Kelly. Hi, Kelly. How are you? Good morning. So we have a very important and heavy topic today to talk about. It will be 6 real estate scams you should definitely be aware of, and we're going to be explaining to you guys what they are, how they happen, and giving you tips on how to avoid them and understanding what are the possibilities of potential scams out there, so you guys know what to be aware of. But before we get into this, Kelly's going to give us a review of our last topic, which was the VA loans, and that was a very dear to my heart, and that's also Kelly's heart because her dad is also prior service. So take it away.
Yep. So VA loans are a big benefit to veterans. There are a little bit of details that go into play with it when you get a VA loan, like your certificate of eligibility. You have to, depending on your type of military status, it all depends on whether or not you qualify for the military loan. But the certificate of eligibility is the big thing, which we can pull as the lender. Sometimes we can pull with the social and date of birth, but sometimes we need to know the details of the whole transaction. But the big benefit is a veteran is eligible for 100% financing of the loan. So if the purchase price is $100,000, then that is what their loan amount is. And if a veteran is disabled or if they have been discharged honorably, the VA funding fee is waived. If it is not waived, then it does get financed throughout the loan, which it usually isn't a whole lot, but it's still a benefit. You still don't have to have a down payment for the VA loan. You just would have to have closing costs. But we do also offer our PHFA program that can go into play with the VA loan, whereas you get could possibly get up to 5% of the purchase price to go towards down payment and closing costs. So the most you would have to pay is $1,000, but if you're eligible for the VA loan and the PHFA loan, it's a win.
That's all you're paying, $1,000 out of pocket. That would be a great deal.
So thank you for all the veterans out there.
Thank you for your service, guys.
Yeah, this great program for veterans.
Awesome. Alrighty. So as usual, we're going to do our myth of the day. And today's myth is actually more related to me. But it's very, very actually common for people not to know this. And I was actually surprised after, asking a few questions around. So realtors are paid salary. That is not true. We are not paid salary. I know sometimes it's hard to believe that because you see realtors just going around showing houses, driving nice cars for the most part, hosting events, doing marketing campaigns and whatnot, and you think, oh, they must be getting a salary, right? No, it's 100% of our own cost. We are actually paid on commission, and we're paid based on the houses that we do sell, either on the selling side or on the buying side. So just heads up to buyers out there. If you are online, you're requesting showings and you meet with an agent and you meet with another agent and you meet with another agent, those agents are not getting paid for meeting with you. So try to interview the agent you want to work with before you start using their services, and then stick to them, because we are not paid just to show you one house. We are only paid when you do actually buy a home. So ideally, if you want to work with one agent, stick to that agent, but do your due diligence, interview your agents prior, make sure you're working with someone that, was referred to you or that has good referrals or good reviews. That way, you're being well taken care of. But don't just go around asking on Zillow for showing tours from different agents, because we do not get paid for those. Just as an FYI to you guys. So that's the myth of the day. We're going to be probably doing an episode based on the life of a realtor and also the life of a loan officer. And we're going to be explaining to you guys what is it about, how you can become one or another. And I feel like that's going to be a pretty interesting topic for you guys that are out there interested in maybe getting a realtor license or interested in becoming a loan officer. You guys can watch those episodes and learn more. And you can always reach out to us as well for any questions. So moving on to today's topic. So this is a really, really important one. 6 real estate scams that we kind of run into more often. Of course, there's probably more out there, but we're going to be talking about the most common ones that we could find and explaining to you guys how to possibly avoid them, know the signs, and let's get into it. So, do you want to get started? Maybe with this one is very, very common, and I think you probably even might have seen that happening, maybe with you yourself, but
I haven't seen it happen, but I do know it's a big one, and it's wire fraud scams. So they usually occur when a hacker gains access to an email account or impersonates a real estate agent, attorney, or other party involved in a real estate transaction.
Yeah.
The hacker will send an email with the fake wiring instructions, causing the victim to transfer the funds into their account. And that's one of the biggest ways that they try to get in and scam people. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, because now we don't do a ton of wires in my side. It all depends on the borrower. You have the option to do a wire for settlement, or you can issue a check. It's completely up to the borrower. Most people do a check, but a lot of people, they feel more secure with a wire. But with a wire, and when I was in commercial lending with M&T Bank, we did everything wire. And this was, many years ago. But every time a wire was done on an account, it had to be verified via a phone call. And there had to be 3 phone calls done.
Oh, wow.
One with, sometimes I would get involved, one with the title company, one with the bank, and the other with, was the bank, the title company, and the borrower.
Yeah.
I think. I just know that there were
layers, right?
Calls.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would call us. So sometimes we would be that third point of contact, just to verify that the wire funds, we would have to verify the wiring instructions, like we'd have to verify their name, address, all kinds of stuff to make sure that this was a legit wire.
Yeah.
I don't know nowadays. I know there has to be at least 2 verifications with the wire. On our end, I don't know if there are, I know it used to be 3, but with a wire, they will always call. It's never an email confirmation for the wire. It's always a phone call to verify the wire instructions and where it's going.
Yeah. And if for some reason you are working with, a different title company or maybe an attorney, and those, double calls, confirmations are not in place, you yourself, if you are wiring funds to anybody for any reason, always contact the person that you are actually in touch with, being the title company person, the attorney, or the real estate agent. Call them to double check on the information of the wire you are sending to. Because I actually have seen happen, not with myself or a client of mine, thank goodness, but in one of my previous brokerages, the title company's email got hacked, and they actually duplicated their email, and there was one period instead of just the name of the person, so it was very hard to notice, right? So the buyer received the information, they thought they were in touch with that person because it was an ongoing chain, and then the buyers went and sent the funds, and it was a fraud. So it happened. So don't trust emails. Even if you are on a big chain of emails with someone, don't trust it, because emails can be hacked nowadays. It's just the reality of things. There's a lot of things that we try to put in place to protect emails and communications and whatnot, but hackers are hackers, and you gotta just be checking all the things you can check. So the best more of the story for wire frauds is call to confirm the information about the wire and where you're sending the money to. Because if you double check via call, there's much less likability that that's going to be incorrect, and you're going to be safe on that step. So always contact your real estate agent, the title company, or your attorney, whoever you're dealing with.
Yep, and the bank. So in our case, it'll be if you're doing a wire, it's got to come from your bank. So the bank has to call the title company. Sometimes they'll verify with you, the real estate agent. They try to make sure that it's verified through a couple different contacts. So it's super important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is a big one. It is unfortunately more common than what we would like to see it happening. So just watch out for that one. Second one that we do see quite a bit too is rental scams. And we're going to mention a couple things that happen here, but I think the most common is scammers out there maybe posting fake posts about properties that are for rent. And then it may be that they just be asking for your application, the $35, $45, whatever it is, application fee. And then people feel like, oh, it's just the application fee, I'll do it. And that was a scam already. So it could be as little as that. So what I usually tell people is don't just apply for a property, even if it's an application of rental, until you actually see the property and you make sure that you're dealing with the right person that represents that property. So I always go for a showing first. Go and take a look at the property. Meet with the person that is representing. Could be the property manager, could be the owner directly, or it could be a real estate agent. But make sure you're talking to that person first and seeing the property physically, get access to it before you will even set up an application. Applications should not have to be done prior to you taking a look at the property. This is an FYI. You can look at the property before doing application. If someone is kind of pushing you to do an application before seeing the property, most likely that's a scam. It could be that it isn't. Don't get me wrong, but that's normally not how the business is done. You are allowed to see the property. And that's the minimum. Now, there are also scammers out there that will go as far as asking for deposits before even showing you a property. That's definitely no. Do not put a deposit on a property you've never seen. Don't trust them because there's a lot of scammers faking properties. And they're going to be an existing property. You can easily drive by, but that doesn't mean that person you're talking to is the correct person to be sending a deposit to. So really just do your due diligence when it comes to rental. If you're not certain, contact a real estate agent and might be able to help you find out the truth or the right person to reach out to. So just really do your due diligence when looking for rentals. Don't send money without being certain of who you're talking to. You want to add anything to this one too?
I don't think so. I think you covered it pretty good. I mean, you just want to make sure that you're working with the correct person for the correct property, and that goes into, realtors, they can help people. Some realtors do help with people renting, so it's just to make sure that you have the correct person with the correct property. I really don't have, other than what you mentioned, it's just verifying you got the right people.
Yeah.
It's usually what fraud is all about.
Exactly. Yeah, just do your due diligence. And I don't personally work with rentals, but if someone calls me, and I do get a lot of calls about rentals and asking questions about property, I'll be more than happy to at least guide you the right direction. I may not be doing the showings or anything like that, but at least I'll give you the contact information of the property manager for that property. And I may have other means that you might not be able to see that might be more reassuring that you're contacting the right person. So feel free to ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to help as well, even though that's not the realm that I'm in, but I'm happy to assist there.
Which brings us into the next one, which is a foreclosure scam.
Yeah.
So if you're an individual who's facing foreclosure, you're going to get phone calls from people reaching out to you to help you for a fee. Of course, they're always going to ask for that fee up front. That's a big red flag if they ask for a fee. If you are pending foreclosure and you want to find some financial advice, you want to find a reputable place to work with, or HUD-approved housing counselor. There's so many different resources out there. But again, if you start searching it online, they're going to know. So just make sure if you ever get those phone calls and they ask for a fee up front, that's not a real thing.
No.
You should always be able to sit down and talk with somebody, or talk with somebody over the phone about it. get their credentials, find out who they are, where they're from, get their license if they have a license.
And let's face it, if you're facing foreclosure or in danger of facing foreclosure, you shouldn't be asked to pay anything. If anything, we're either going to try to help you sell it before it forecloses or get an arrangement in order for you to, it's usually a sale. Most of the times, it's the sale of your property, being a short sale, being a foreclosed sale. It's going to be the sale of your home that's going to pay off your debt. You may end up at the end having to pay a certain amount, but never upfront. That would always be towards the end of the process. So again, do your due diligence, talk to a real estate professional, double check on the information you're being given. And that's really what it is. And the fourth topic, which is title fraud, most of the time is tied in with foreclosures, and I want to bring those two together because they tend to happen at the same time. So let's say someone approaches you because you are in lieu of foreclosure. Maybe they're not asking you for a fee up front, but they're asking you to sign some documents. And please read what you're signing. Know who you're talking to, do your research on the person you're talking to, and if you are in doubt and if you think something doesn't look right, reach out to a title company, reach out to a real estate agent, another third party to verify the documentation for you. A real estate attorney is always your best bet too, to verify any document you're signing, because what happens in title fraud is that a scammer will reach out to you for different reasons. They will have you sign some documents that actually, in fact, are transferring ownership from you to them, and then they basically sell the house and take money, and you're not even going to know that the house is sold because it's no longer yours. So just make sure that you are not signing in documents that you're not certain of what they mean and what they're doing on your behalf. Always ask for advice. Real estate agents are always helpful. Again, we don't get paid salary, right? We get paid commission. So we will be looking forward to helping you. And it won't cost you anything to ask for advice. A real estate attorney maybe will cost you to review a contract. But if you ask for a title company to review something or a real estate agent to review something, more than likely we'll be able to kind of at least guide you and tell you, yeah, this is actually a transfer of title, or no, this is legit, this is correct documentation. So I always ask for help, do your due diligence. Title fraud is a big deal, and unfortunately, it targets a lot of elderly that may not be seeing too well, not understanding things anymore as well. So if you have a parent that is an elderly that owns a home and you know that someone is approaching them, make sure you're helping them, assisting them, helping them do the due diligence that they need to do in order to avoid this kind of fraud that happens, unfortunately, way too often.
So that brings us into investment scams. So investment scams occur when a scammer offers a real estate investment opportunity that promises high returns with little risk. To avoid this scam, you want to always make sure you do your due diligence and research on the investment opportunity thoroughly, because most likely, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true.
Yes, exactly. That's very true.
So, I mean, really, again, it's just making sure you're doing your research on things and making sure you're talking to legit people. You know, if it's an investment scam, or investment opportunity, make sure you know what you're doing, because investments, I mean, people get into it all the time, especially in real estate. It's huge. But yeah, it's just all about knowing who you're talking to and what you're doing yourself. Making sure people have the correct licenses. You know, is the property legit property? Is the property actually for sale?
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, the investment scams are very, very popular off the MLS, so off-market deals that we call it, right? Where an owner is saying, hey, this property is a great investment opportunity. You can get it for as low as $20,000, you know? So yeah, if it sounds too good to be true, probably is. And The investment scams actually kind of encompasses pretty much all the scams we talked so far. They could be doing a wire fraud. They could be asking you for deposits that are not going nowhere. They could be actually not even the owners of the property, or the property may have backed up taxes, or very cloudy title, where if you purchase, you're never actually going to be able to take ownership because the title is cloudy or has so many back taxes that you would have to pay way above what the house is worth sometimes to actually clear the title and become an owner. So if the house is being sold too cheap or is too great of a deal, do your due diligence. Spend the money to talk to a real estate attorney, especially on off-market properties like this. Reach out to a title company, pull up the deed, make sure that the title is clear. Do a title search, make sure that there's no tax liens on the property, there's no mortgages, open mortgages on the property. Because if you take ownership, you're actually taking ownership of all those past taxes and open mortgages. And it could be like an open mortgage of $150,000 that is due on that property. Now you're the owner, guess what? You have to pay for that. So that's the kind of investment scams that we're kind of like trying to shine some light on, especially when they're being sold off market, when there's no professionals involved in transaction. These kind of things, they kind of get lost, and people take ownership, which is so easy to do. Transfer title is a simple, quick claim deed. You can become the new owner of a property, but now you also are the responsible owner for everything that belongs to that property. And it means open mortgages, taxes, tax liens, second mortgages, you name it. It could be so much that you may not be aware of, and this is a big one. So for investors out there looking for deals, do your due diligence, do this title search, work with a title company by your side, or even a real estate agent, because the investment of having a professional on your side is definitely worth it when it comes to this kind of investment potential deals. Yep. This one, rent to own schemes. Oh my gosh, I've actually ran into two situations with buyers of mine that were scammed on that rent to own situation. And this comes in so many shapes and forms. Every buyer out there that maybe doesn't have a good credit score or doesn't understand how the buying process actually is, or how much it costs, or really think like the only thing they can do is rent, and they think it's cheaper to do a rent to own, right? Like finance with the seller. They think those are the best deals ever, and they can be if they're done properly, right? The problem is they're usually not. There's so many rent to own postings and listings online that are just dead on scams, and you can just pick it up. Some of them from the listing, some of them from the first call, first email. And then some of them you actually have to dig into it to find out what things are gonna come out of it, So rent to own, for people that are not familiar with, is basically when a owner of a property decides that, hey, instead of working through a bank, let's say instead of like getting a mortgage with Kelly, you're gonna actually finance that property directly to a buyer on the side, and you guys gonna have an agreement draft up between just the seller and the buyer, and say, okay, you make this payments, this much is going to be interest, this much is going to go towards principal, and in 20 years, this property is going to be yours. There's a major risk on the buyer side because, first of all, that buyer, if they're not doing their due diligence, that house could not even be that person's house. And now they're putting a deposit or making payments towards something that is not theirs. That's the first one, the most common. It could be just a scammed listing of a property that doesn't even exist or is not for sale, and the person is putting a deposit on. That's another thing that can happen. There's a lot of upfront fees that they can be asking you to pay, and then once you are paying those upfront fees, guess what? There's no house. You're not getting into a home. Or they could be putting you in a situation where you spend a year living in the house, renting the house, and guess what? They decided they don't want to sell it to you. And now you have to go through an attorney to try to fight against the contract that, if you didn't read it, could very well say that the seller can change their mind at any time and everything you invested is not yours anymore. So that's why having a professional review your contract is so important. because there's so many things, and I mean, I can name so many things that can go wrong on a seller seller financing or rent to own option, that people call it. So, have you ever seen anything like it, Kelly? Like
I have not. However, I do know of some people that it has happened to. But like you said, with rent to own, there's a lot of things you want to verify up front. You know, sometimes you'll do a rent to own and you pay a certain amount, that eventually when you buy it, you may have started renting at this amount. When you eventually buy it, it might be a lower amount. That's not always the case. I just feel like rent to owns, you want to see what that person pays for that house. You want to know the details. Like what is the mortgage payment on that house? Am I paying the right amount? And if I'm paying the right amount, then that should lower it each month.
Yeah,
depending on the.
I didn't even think about that. You could be overpaying on a property. Like a property is worth $100,000, and based on the terms that you created with that seller, you could be paying $350,000 home. Fees, you know. So that falls under the unfair contract terms. You may be overpaying, or maybe paying too many fees. The seller could be saying during the rental term that you have to pay 60% interest, so you're never actually paying that house down, and you don't even realize it, or that everything that happens to the house would have to be paid off by the buyer. You know? So there's a lot.
Yeah, I would say in rent to own situations, always good to have a lawyer or somebody to help with the contract and make sure that person is a legit person. I mean, it's always good to have a lawyer look at contracts, and that, especially in those situations, or an abstract company, because they're maybe not necessarily an abstract, but more a lawyer, just to make sure that things are the way they should be. Because when it comes time and you want to buy it from them, you're going to be in a financing terms with the bank or whoever, or a lender like me, because I've worked with people who've done rent to owns, and a lot of it is a contract that they work with a lawyer, and they've done it, and they have the abstract company. Usually a lot of lawyers work with abstract companies. So I knew it was legit because it was a lawyer was working on it, and we use their abstract company for the fees and stuff. So, rent to owns are a big thing, but it's always good to know that whether or not it's a scam and what things to look out for.
Exactly. So make sure that you do have either a real estate attorney reviewing the contract you're signing. You spend whatever the hourly fee is for that attorney, and actually have them review your contract, because that will give you a little peace of mind. And it doesn't hurt to reach out to a title company, have a title company do a title search to make sure that that property is actually going to be able to be passed on to you, that person that is talking to you is actually the owner. That is kind of like the beginning works of it. And having the contract reviewed is also to ensure that, later on when you do finish making the payments that you agreed to make, that title is actually going to be able to pass on to you, or if in the contract you have the right to buy at any time, that the house can be financed, because sometimes the house may not be a financeable home, and then you're going to find yourself having to actually proceed with that rent to own loan with the seller for the whatever time frame you agreed on. And again, that seller could always change their mind at any time, and then you actually have to create a lawsuit to, obtain that property, when on a regular real estate transaction, that's not going to be the case, because that's all done by guidelines and policies within the state and the country. When you're doing between just you and another individual, things get a little muddy, a little gray. So do your due diligence, talk to real estate professionals, talk to a real estate attorney, in order to verify that what you're signing is legit, and it is actually covering your side of the deal too, that it has fair terms to you, and that you understand what those terms are from beginning to end. And if you are okay with the terms, then that's good. But you want to make sure that you understand them.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that pretty much to summarize this episode, I would say do your due diligence to avoid any type of scam, whether it's fraud, rental, foreclosures, title fraud, investment scams, and rent-to-owns. There's probably other types of fraud out there.
Definitely other types we didn't mention, but
But these are the big ones with real estate. But it's, make sure you're talking to the right person with the right credentials, and that you're not giving out information that you shouldn't be giving.
But pay upfront to anything unless you know for certain who you're talking to. I think the moral of the story is really have a professional working with you, or at least assisting on your behalf, reviewing things that you might be finding, looking over things on your behalf, because you may try to do your due diligence, but you'll not be able to reach everything that you need to know. So having a professional overlook things on your behalf really helps. And it could be a real estate agent, could be a real estate attorney, it could be a title company, but have someone do the due diligence with you on the things that maybe you're not certain about. Unless you have, are able to do all the research on your own, which is great. But if you have any doubts, double check with a professional. Just do it. It's going to save you thousands potentially. And like I said, it could be a scam of $30, or it could be a scam of thousands of dollars. So
correct.
Either way, you don't want to fall for anything. Nobody wants to be part of it, or fall for it.
Right.
Right. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, you guys, for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode, and we're going to be sharing with you some more information about how to become a real estate agent and a loan officer. So we're excited to share the details with you guys. If you have any questions, reach out to us. See ya.
Bye. Have a great day.